the alien princess walked onto the battlefield, and the war finally began. From the edge of the human camp, Captain Eric Duran watched the alien fleets hovering just above the horizon. They were vast, impossible structures of living metal, stretching as far as the eye could see, each one pulsing like it had a heartbeat of its own. On the ground, the human forces were small in comparison, their armored vehicles lined up in perfect formation, soldiers standing ready, faces hardened by years of anticipation and discipline. For 3 years, Caro's Prime had been a place of silent tension. The war had never started, yet both sides had prepared as if the final battle would come at any moment. The Galactic Coalition, a vast empire of alien species, had declared humanity a threat after the Terran colonies began expanding beyond Earth's immediate system. And humans, stubborn and relentless, refused to back down. They had no illusions about their size or strength. They knew the odds were against them, but what humans lacked in numbers, they made up for with determination, strategy, and patience. Eric adjusted the scope of his binoculars and focused on the alien ranks. The soldiers of the coalition were like nothing he had ever imagined. They were taller than any human, with chitin-like skin that reflected the violet light in sharp, unnatural angles. Their faces, or what passed for faces, were hidden beneath translucent helmets that glowed with soft light. They moved in synchronized patterns as if controlled by a single mind. There was no fear in their movements, no hesitation. Just precision and the quiet confidence of a force that believed itself unstoppable. Eric's first officer, Lieutenant Mara Singh, joined him at the observation post. She leaned over his shoulder, her eyes scanning the horizon. "They've been standing there for hours," she said. "Do you think they're going to attack today?" Eric shook his head. "No, not yet. The coalition doesn't strike unless they think the outcome is guaranteed. They're waiting for us to break first. That's how they operate," Mara frowned. "And we just wait. We don't make a move." "We wait," Eric said firmly. "And we watch, we learn. That's what humans do better than anyone else." The wind carried a metallic tang, and distant sounds of alien machinery hummed in the air. From the camp, humans were busy preparing. Supply drones moved in neat patterns, carrying ammunition, rations, and medical supplies. Soldiers checked their equipment, loading weapons, adjusting armor, and running through drills. Even in the face of overwhelming odds, there was a sense of calm efficiency. Humans were not panicked. They were ready. Suddenly, a flash of light appeared on the horizon. Everyone in the human camp turned to watch. A single craft was descending, cutting through the violet clouds with incredible speed. The shape was elegant, unlike any of the coalition's warships. Its hull shimmered with a golden glow, reflecting the alien sunlight in soft, dazzling patterns. "Is that one of theirs?" Mara whispered. Eric didn't answer. He felt a cold, strange certainty settle over him. This was not a scout or a fighter. This was someone important, someone with authority, someone who could change the course of this long, silent standoff. The craft landed in the middle of the battlefield. Dust and energy swirled around it as the humans and aliens alike fell silent. Slowly, the doors opened, and a figure emerged. She was taller than any human, but not monstrous. Her features were sharp and beautiful, almost like a living sculpture. Her hair flowed in silver waves, and her eyes glowed with a soft light, piercing and intelligent. The soldiers instinctively straightened, sensing her power without understanding it. The human officers exchanged glances. This was the alien princess, the rumored heir of the coalition's vast empire. She had been whispered about in intelligence reports and legends, a figure so powerful and proud that no one dared approach her lightly. And now, she was walking alone onto the battlefield. Eric felt a chill run down his spine. "She's alone," he muttered. Mara's eyes widened. "No guards, not even drones." "None," Eric said. "This is not a military maneuver. This is a message, and we need to understand it before we respond." The princess moved with grace, her every step deliberate. The alien soldiers on the battlefield hesitated, unsure whether to intervene. The humans stayed in formation, weapons lowered, waiting. There was a strange tension in the air, thick enough to touch. When the princess reached the center, she paused. Her gaze swept across the human lines, and for a moment, time seemed to stop. Eric felt as if she could see into his mind, reading not just his thoughts but the thoughts of every soldier in the camp. He did not flinch. Humans rarely did. They had trained for moments like this, though nothing had prepared them for the sheer intensity of her presence. Finally, she spoke. Her voice was clear, musical, but carried the weight of command. "Humans," she said, "why do you refuse to surrender?" Eric stepped forward. "We refuse because we will not live as slaves," he said. His voice was steady. "We will not bow to an empire that sees us as less than it sees itself. We will fight. We will survive, and we will not break." The princess tilted her head slightly, considering him. "You are bold," she said softly, "perhaps too bold. Do you understand what you face?" "Yes," Eric replied, "and we understand what we are." The princess smiled faintly, almost in approval. "Very well. Then let the war begin when it begins. But know this, we have waited for this day, and we will not wait forever." She turned her gaze to the alien soldiers behind her, raising a hand in a gesture that radiated authority. A ripple of energy passed through their ranks, as if her presence alone gave them purpose. They stood straighter, their weapons ready, but no attack came. The silence returned, heavier now, filled with anticipation. Eric lowered his gaze for a moment, taking a deep breath. He could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on him, but also the strange thrill that only humans could feel in the face of impossible odds. This was the battlefield they had trained for, the moment they had prepared for, and they would not falter. In the camp, the soldiers whispered among themselves, their voices low but full of awe. They were witnessing history. The alien princess had walked onto the battlefield, alone, challenging not just their army, but their courage, their determination, and their very will to survive. As the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the battlefield, Eric turned to Mara. "We hold," he said simply. "We wait, that is our strength. The coalition may have the numbers, but we have something they do not: patience and resolve." Mara nodded, feeling a surge of pride. Humanity had been underestimated, as they always were. The alien princess might have power, authority, and armies behind her, but humans had something that no one could measure: the refusal to surrender, the courage to endure, and the intelligence to fight wars in ways no one expected. The sky darkened, and the first stars of Karo's prime appeared. The princess remained at the center of the battlefield, her gaze never leaving the human lines. Neither side moved, yet the tension was unbearable. Every soldier knew that this was the calm before the storm, that the moment the first weapon fired, the world would change forever. But Eric did not fear that moment. He had seen humanity survive worse than this, endure greater threats, and emerge stronger than anyone had imagined. And now, standing on Karo's prime, he knew that no matter what the galaxy threw at them, humans would not back down. The alien princess might have walked onto the battlefield, but the war had not yet begun. And when it did, humans would show the universe exactly why they were not to be underestimated. The alien princess remained at the center of the battlefield as the violet light of Karo's prime shifted into a deeper, almost black hue. The wind carried the scent of strange minerals and metallic ozone, a reminder that this world was foreign, dangerous, and utterly alien. Her silver hair shimmered in the fading light, moving like liquid against the rigid lines of soldiers and machines. Behind her, the coalition forces held their ground, but something in their movements had changed. They no longer seemed as confident. Their orders were hesitant, their strikes measured. Even they felt the weight of her presence, and perhaps the subtle danger in humanity's calm. Captain Eric Duran lowered his binoculars slowly, feeling the same strange certainty that had gripped him when she first arrived. The humans had been trained to read situations, to sense fear, to anticipate moves from enemies far stronger than themselves. And now, facing the most important alien in the galaxy, they were ready to demonstrate exactly why humans were different. Lieutenant Mara Singh stood beside him, her eyes fixed on the princess. "She's waiting for something," she whispered. "I don't think she expected us to just hold our ground," Eric nodded. "She's testing us. Royals always test not just armies but hearts. She wants to see if we'll break under pressure, and so far we haven't." The princess raised her head and surveyed the human lines with eyes that seemed to pierce through armor, weapons, and shields. Then, without warning, she began walking forward again. Her steps were deliberate, precise, and unhurried. With each movement, the energy on the battlefield shifted. The coalition soldiers stiffened, unsure whether to act or remain frozen under the silent command of their princess. From the human camp, murmurs spread among the soldiers. They had trained for war, but nothing in simulations could replicate the presence of someone so powerful, so fearless. Still, there was no panic, only observation, patience, and quiet confidence. Eric stepped forward, his hand raised slightly in a gesture of acknowledgement. "Princess," he said, his voice carrying across the empty stretch of ground, "we did not expect an audience today." The princess paused, lifting her eyes to meet his. "I did not come to negotiate casually," she replied. Her voice was soft yet commanding, like the calm before a storm. "I came because humanity has tested my patience. You refuse to surrender, and yet you do not attack. You wait. Why?" Eric allowed himself a slight smile. "Because we do not fight blindly. We do not attack unless we have purpose, and we do not retreat unless we must. That is how humans survive." Her eyes narrowed and she tilted her head slightly. "You are bold. Do you understand what that means? Boldness without wisdom is recklessness. You risk your people, your civilization." "Perhaps," Eric said, "but boldness with strategy is strength. We have lived in hostile conditions for centuries, princess. You may see it as foolishness, but we call it preparation." She studied him silently, her gaze scanning the human soldiers behind him. She noticed the way they stood, disciplined and alert, yet not tense, not fearful. That alone surprised her. The humans were not cowering, not even slightly. And in her experience, every species broke under certain pressures. Every species except for humans. "Very well," she said finally, her voice carrying across the battlefield. "Let me walk among you. I want to see this strength you claim. I want to understand why your species believes it can endure against my empire." A hush fell over the human ranks. Some officers looked to Eric for guidance, unsure whether to allow this unprecedented approach. He nodded slightly. "If she walks, she walks. Maintain formation. No sudden movements. Observe. Do not provoke." The princess moved forward again, her eyes never leaving Eric. She walked slowly among the soldiers, her presence commanding attention without a word. The humans held their positions, weapons lowered but ready. Her steps were measured, almost ceremonial, as if she were a judge inspecting a courtroom of living subjects. One of the human soldiers, a young man barely out of training, shifted nervously. His heart pounded and his fingers twitched near the weapon at his side. The princess stopped in front of him, tilting her head. "You fear me," she said softly, "and yet you do not flee." "Why?" The soldier swallowed hard. "Because we do not run, ma'am, not from anyone, not even you." The princess's lips curved slightly in what could almost be called amusement. "Your confidence is misplaced," she said, "but it is admirable." She continued walking through the lines, speaking to soldiers, officers, and even the engineers tending to vehicles. Everywhere she looked, she saw humans ready for battle but composed, tense but not frantic, courageous but not reckless. And for the first time, the princess felt a flicker of curiosity about this species she had been taught to see as inferior, reckless, and chaotic. Eric observed quietly, noting her reactions. He understood the value of perception, even in an enemy. "She underestimates us," he muttered to Mara. "Or maybe she hasn't understood us yet. Either way, patience. Let her see what humans really are." Hours passed. The sun sank lower, casting long shadows across the battlefield. The alien princess finally stopped at the edge of the human camp, her silver hair catching the dying light like molten metal. She turned to Eric. "I have walked among your soldiers. I have observed your discipline. I have spoken to your leaders, and yet I do not see the reason why you refuse to surrender. Tell me, Captain, what is it that makes humans believe they can survive against my empire?" Eric took a deep breath. "Because we adapt," he said. "We learn faster than anyone else. We work together when survival demands it. We endure, not just as individuals but as a species. And we do not surrender our dignity or freedom, no matter how strong the enemy seems." The princess's gaze lingered on him, sharp and intense. "Adaptation can only go so far," she said. "Your weapons, your formations, your strategies, they are impressive. But can they withstand the full might of the coalition? Have you calculated the cost?" Eric shook his head slightly. "We do not calculate fear, princess. We calculate opportunity, and we have seen weaknesses in your forces in ways you would not expect. That is how humans survive. That is how we fight wars." Her eyes narrowed. "You are reckless." "Perhaps," Eric admitted, "but you will soon see that humans are also relentless. We do not give up. We do not yield. And when the time comes, we fight in ways no one expects." The princess remained silent for a long moment, as if weighing his words against everything she had ever known. Then she took a step back and raised her hand slightly. A ripple of energy passed through the alien forces behind her, and their weapons glowed faintly, ready but restrained. "You are unlike any species I have ever faced," she said finally. "Bold, patient, disciplined, and yet defiant. You wait. You endure. You prepare. That is unexpected." Eric met her gaze steadily. "You have never faced humans like us, and you never will until you understand that strength is not always in numbers or weapons. Sometimes it is in the refusal to be broken." For a moment, the alien princess considered his words. Her mind raced, processing every detail she had observed. Every soldier who had remained calm under pressure, every engineer who had continued to work while an enemy watched, every small, human gesture of courage and determination. It all formed a picture she had not anticipated. Finally, she nodded slightly. "Perhaps the war will not begin as I expected. Perhaps your strength lies not in attack but in patience. We shall see." The humans watched her carefully, sensing the shift in the air. Something had changed. The alien princess was no longer just a threat. She was a variable, a force of curiosity and caution. And in her own way, she had acknowledged that humanity was not a species to be underestimated. Eric lowered his binoculars and turned to Mara. "This is only the beginning," he said quietly. "She may leave us alive for now, but the real test is coming. We have shown her that humans are patient. Now we must show her that we are unstoppable when the time comes." Mara nodded. "And we will. That is what makes us human. That is what the galaxy will learn eventually." As darkness fell over Kairos Prime, the alien princess withdrew to the edge of the battlefield, leaving the human lines intact. The coalition forces remained tense, unsure whether to act, unsure whether to obey. And the humans, calm as ever, prepared quietly for the war that had not yet begun, but which was now closer than anyone realized. The stars shone brightly above, and the wind whispered across the violet plains. On this alien world, humanity had not only survived the arrival of the galaxy's most feared royal, but had begun to carve a place for themselves in the story of interstellar conflict. The alien princess had walked among them, and she had learned something she could not ignore. Humanity was not weak, humanity was not predictable, and humanity was not to be underestimated. The war had not started yet, But when it did, everything would change. The night over Karos Prime was silent, almost unnervingly so. The violet sky deepened into a dark indigo, scattered with countless alien stars that glimmered like shards of glass. The wind had died down, leaving the battlefield in an eerie calm. Both the human and coalition forces had paused for the night, maintaining tight formations but refraining from any aggressive moves. Yet despite the quiet, tension hung thick over the land, heavy enough to feel in every breath. Captain Eric Duran walked slowly among his troops, his boots crunching against the coarse, crystalline sand. The soldiers were busy checking weapons, repairing armored vehicles, and coordinating supply drones. Despite the danger looming over them, there was no panic. Only focused, precise movements, the hallmark of human training and determination. Lieutenant Mara Singh followed closely, her eyes scanning the horizon even in the dim light. "Do you think she'll act tonight?" she asked quietly. "The princess, I mean. She's been observing us for hours, maybe even days. Isn't she supposed to make the first move?" Eric shook his head. "She doesn't act without understanding what she faces. She has the power to command the entire coalition, but she cannot predict humans. Not yet. That is our advantage." He paused, looking out over the shadowed battlefield. "We survive not by brute force but by patience, by endurance, and by knowing when to strike." Mara glanced at the armored vehicles, sleek and reinforced, ready for combat. "And when we do strike, it will be unlike anything they expect," she said, a hint of excitement in her voice. Eric nodded. "Exactly. They think victory comes from numbers, from overwhelming force. Humans know victory comes from understanding, from strategy, and from timing. That is how wars are truly won." From the distance, a faint hum grew, almost imperceptible, until it became a deep, resonant vibration across the battlefield. The alien princess had returned. Not with a grand display, not with a fleet of ships, but alone, her presence cutting through the darkness like a blade. Her silver hair shone faintly under the alien starlight, and her eyes glimmered with intelligence and calculation. She walked steadily toward the human camp, every step measured and deliberate. Eric signaled his officers to maintain formation, but to prepare for any unexpected actions. The human soldiers remained calm, watching her approach with curiosity and readiness. There was no fear in their ranks, only a sense of controlled anticipation. When she reached the edge of the human formation, she stopped and raised a hand. The energy rippling from her movement caused the air to shimmer slightly, but still, no attack came. The humans waited, disciplined, their weapons lowered yet ready. "Captain Duran," she said, her voice carrying across the battlefield, "you have proven patience and courage. You have held your ground against a force far superior to yours, but I do not see how this can last. Humans are small, weak in numbers, and fragile. How do you intend to survive when the full might of the coalition strikes?" Eric stepped forward, his voice steady and calm. "We survive because we adapt. We survive because we do not fear what is unknown. And we survive because we do not underestimate ourselves or our enemies. You may have fleets, princess, but we have knowledge, preparation, and resolve. That is what makes humans strong." The princess's gaze swept across the human lines. She noticed the subtle adjustments in formations, the quiet signals passing between officers, the intricate coordination of drones and vehicles. These were not haphazard movements. Every action was calculated, deliberate, and efficient. It was unlike anything she had ever witnessed in a species considered primitive by the standards of the galaxy. "You speak of preparation," she said softly, "but how can you withstand us? How can you hope to endure our weapons, our tactics, our numbers?" Eric's eyes glinted with determination. "We have already endured worse than what you imagine, and when the time comes, we will show you that the human way of war is not what you expect. You may have fleets, weapons, and numbers, but we have ingenuity, endurance, and the ability to turn every disadvantage into advantage." For a moment, the princess regarded him in silence. Then, without another word, she turned and raised her hand toward the horizon. Instantly, a signal pulsed through the alien ranks. Their ships shifted position, some ascending into orbit, others moving closer to human formations. The energy ripples in the air intensified. The coalition forces were preparing, and yet no attack had been ordered. Eric turned to Mara, his voice low. "They're testing us. They think that by moving closer, by showing their strength, we will break. But humans do not break under intimidation. We observe, we calculate, and we respond only when the time is right." Mara nodded, her eyes fixed on the glowing shapes of alien vehicles. "And the princess, what is she thinking?" "She is trying to understand us," Eric said. "She sees strength in numbers, but she cannot measure strength in patience, in resolve. That is something humans have that the coalition does not." Hours passed. The night deepened, and the cold alien winds swept across the battlefield. The humans worked quietly, checking and rechecking equipment, reviewing battle plans, and ensuring that every detail was accounted for. Meanwhile, the alien princess observed from her position, walking slowly among the front lines, studying humans in their element. She stopped in front of a young soldier repairing a drone. "You work with care," she noted. "Do you not fear the consequences if your mistakes cost lives?" The soldier looked up, his hands steady on the machine. "We prepare for mistakes," he said simply. "We correct them and we continue. That is how we survive. Fear does not help anyone here." The princess studied him for a long moment. His calmness, his focus, his courage, it was unexpected. "You are unlike any soldier I have seen," she murmured. "Your species, it is capable of more than I imagined." Eric watched from a distance, sensing the subtle shift in her demeanor. "She is beginning to understand," he said quietly. "She realizes that humans are not merely small creatures to be conquered. We are a species that endures, adapts, and overcomes, and that realization is dangerous for her and for her army." The first signs of dawn crept across the horizon, casting long shadows over the violet plains. The alien princess raised her hands once more, signaling the coalition forces to hold. No attack came, yet the energy in the air was electric. The humans felt it, the anticipation of a coming storm, the knowledge that the moment of action was approaching. Eric gathered his officers. "Listen carefully," he said. "They will not attack until they are sure of us. They believe they can intimidate us, push us to make mistakes, but we will not. Tonight, we have learned more about them than they know about us. And when they strike, we will be ready." Mara studied the battlefield, her mind racing with possibilities. "Do you think they know we have prepared for this?" she asked. "They think they do," Eric replied. "But humans never reveal all of our plans. That is how we survive. That is how we win." Suddenly, a loud pulse of energy erupted from the center of the battlefield. The princess had activated a signal, and the alien soldiers responded with precision. Drones moved into formation, vehicles shifted, and weapons glowed ominously. The humans held their ground, calm but alert, their eyes scanning every movement. Eric felt a surge of determination. "Now we wait for the right moment," he said. "We have patience, we have strategy, and we have the courage to act when it matters most. That is the human way." The alien princess walked slowly among the humans once more, her gaze sharp and intelligent. She observed, measured, and calculated. She could see their discipline, their coordination, their unwavering resolve. And she began to realize something profound. The humans were not waiting for her. They were waiting for the war itself, and they would strike only when the moment was perfectly aligned with their advantage. The night stretched on, silent and tense. The humans remained composed, working quietly and efficiently. The alien princess watched them, her mind racing to understand a species she had underestimated. She could see their strength, their courage, and their patience, and she understood that when humanity finally acted, it would be a force unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. As dawn broke fully, casting light across the battlefield, Eric and Mara stood side by side, watching the princess and the alien forces. "She thinks she controls the situation," Eric said quietly. "But humans have always controlled the moment when it matters most. That is why we endure, and that is why we survive." Mara smiled, feeling a surge of pride. "And soon, the coalition will see that humans do not fight like anyone else. They fight with purpose, with patience, and with a will that cannot be broken." The alien princess, standing at the center of the battlefield, raised her gaze to the rising sun. She realized at last that humans were not just soldiers. They were a species defined by endurance, intelligence, and an unyielding spirit. And when the first strike of the war finally came, it would not just be a battle. It would be a revelation. The war had not begun yet. But when it did, the galaxy would witness humanity's true strength for the first time. The sun rose fully over Caro's prime, bathing the violet plains in harsh, golden light. The battlefield stretched endlessly, a strange mix of human machinery and alien constructs. The air was tense, humming with anticipation. Captain Eric Duran stood at the edge of the human formation, scanning the horizon. Today, the waiting ended. Today, humanity would show the galaxy why it could not be underestimated. Behind him, Lieutenant Mara Singh moved among the soldiers, ensuring every unit was prepared. Despite the calm exterior, excitement buzzed in the camp. For years, they had waited, trained, and observed. Every drill, every maneuver, every calculation had led to this moment. Humans were ready, not just to survive, but to turn the battlefield into a demonstration of their ingenuity and determination. The alien princess stood at the center of the coalition's forces, her silver hair glinting in the sun. She had observed the humans for days, learning, calculating, questioning. But now she could see it clearly. They were unlike any species she had ever faced. Bold, patient, disciplined, and remarkably coordinated. Even with her armies, she sensed something that no technology or training could match: the unbreakable will of humans. A low hum spread across the battlefield as the coalition forces moved into their positions. Energy weapons glimmered along the lines, drones hovered in the air, and armored vehicles crept forward. Their strategy was clear: overwhelm the humans with sheer numbers and firepower. But humans had a strategy of their own, one that the coalition could not yet see. Eric raised his hand, signaling his units. Every drone, vehicle, and soldier responded immediately, moving into positions that had been carefully planned over weeks. Humans did not simply react, they anticipated. Hidden cyber units activated, sending signals that disrupted the coalition's communication networks. Supply lines faltered as automated systems shut down, leaving the alien forces momentarily disorganized. The princess's eyes narrowed. "They are stronger than I imagined," she murmured. Her voice carried across the battlefield, calm yet laced with tension. "Even with the full might of the coalition, they are not intimidated. Perhaps this species is truly unique." Eric glanced at Mara. "She sees it now. They realize we are not just survivors. We are strategists, planners, and innovators. And when the time comes, we will strike in a way they cannot predict." Suddenly, a signal rippled through the human lines. Tiny drones, nearly invisible to the naked eye, moved silently into the coalition's positions. They hacked communication nodes, sabotaged energy conduits, and created confusion among the alien ranks. The coalition soldiers faltered, unsure of orders, their formations breaking in subtle but crucial ways. The princess acted quickly, raising her hand to restore order, but the humans were already in motion. Eric gave the command, "Now." Human armored vehicles surged forward, not in a chaotic charge but in precise, synchronized maneuvers. Soldiers advanced strategically, using terrain and cover to their advantage. Energy shields flickered and absorbed incoming fire, while coordinated flanking attacks disrupted the alien lines. For the first time, the coalition realized they were not facing a simple enemy. They were facing a species that had prepared for every eventuality, every strategy, and every weapon. The princess moved among her forces, issuing orders and trying to regain control. Yet everywhere she looked, humans adapted instantly. When one path was blocked, they found another. When one strategy failed, they implemented a new one without hesitation. The battlefield itself seemed to bend to their will, as if the humans had anticipated every move before it happened. Eric observed calmly, issuing orders with clarity and precision. Hold formation, flank left. Focus fire on drones first. Each command was executed flawlessly, a testament to human discipline and training. Even when faced with overwhelming force, humans did not panic. They calculated, adapted, and struck with purpose. The princess watched, her expression a mix of admiration and disbelief. She had faced countless species, countless armies, yet none had demonstrated this level of coordination, ingenuity, and resilience. She realized that humans were not just capable, they were extraordinary. Hours passed in a blur of movement, strategy, and precision strikes. The humans never faltered. Every attack from the coalition was met with countermeasures, traps, and surprises. Supply lines were rerouted, energy weapons jammed, and communication networks disrupted. It was as if the humans were always one step ahead, predicting the enemy's moves before they even occurred. Eric saw an opening. A key command node for the coalition forces stood vulnerable, lightly defended due to the disruption caused by human cyber units. He gave the signal, and a small strike team moved swiftly and silently, neutralizing the node and sending the entire alien command structure into temporary chaos. The princess's eyes widened as she realized what had happened. "Impossible," she whispered. Her soldiers struggled to maintain cohesion and the battlefield shifted rapidly. Humans were not just fighting, they were controlling the battle itself, dictating when and where the conflict unfolded. Eric raised his hand again. "Push forward. Exploit the disruption." The human forces surged, but always with precision, always avoiding unnecessary risk. It was a dance of strategy and strength, a calculated wave that the aliens could not match. In the chaos, the princess approached the human lines once more, moving gracefully among soldiers and vehicles. She could see the determination in their eyes, the unwavering courage in their faces. Every human she observed reinforced the truth she had slowly begun to realize. Humans were not merely survivors, they were masters of strategy, ingenuity, and endurance. "Captain Duran," she said, her voice carrying over the battlefield, "your species, it is remarkable. You have not only survived my empire's might, you have turned it back without fear, without hesitation. How is this possible?" Eric met her gaze steadily. "Because we are human, we endure, we adapt, and when the time comes, we strike with purpose. That is our strength. Not numbers, not weapons, but our will, our intelligence, and our courage." The princess studied him, absorbing his words. She realized something profound. Humans did not need to overwhelm their enemies with force. They needed only to be patient, observant, and precise. And when the moment arrived, their actions were decisive and unstoppable. The alien forces faltered under this new understanding. Orders came late, attacks were misaligned, and morale began to waver. The princess tried to rally them, but the humans had seized control of the battlefield in ways that no one could have predicted. Eric watched the change in the alien forces with quiet satisfaction. Humanity had turned what seemed like a hopeless situation into an overwhelming advantage. They had shown that strength was not measured in sheer numbers or destructive power, but in patience, intelligence, and unity. Hours turned into a full day of relentless, strategic pressure. The coalition's advanced technology and sheer numbers could not overcome human ingenuity. Every move by the aliens was countered, every attack anticipated, every weakness exploited. By evening, The battlefield had shifted entirely. The humans stood victorious, their formation intact, their forces ready, while the alien armies were disoriented, scattered, and struggling to maintain order. The princess stepped forward once more, standing at the edge of the human formation. Her expression was calm, yet heavy with realization. She raised her hand, signaling a ceasefire. The energy weapons of both sides deactivated, and the hum of war fell silent across the plains. Eric and Mara stood side by side, observing the pause. The humans had not fired a single shot that could have caused mass destruction, yet they had won. Their strategy, patience, and courage had defeated an empire that thought them weak. The princess addressed both sides, her voice carrying across the battlefield. "I have underestimated humanity," she said. "You have demonstrated courage, patience, intelligence, and strength beyond measure. I acknowledge your victory, not through destruction, but through the skill and determination you have shown. Today, humanity has proven itself to be a species unlike any I have faced." Eric stepped forward, his voice steady and clear. "We did not seek to destroy. We sought to endure, to protect, and to prove that humanity will never bow to oppression. We have shown the galaxy that we fight not for conquest but for survival and freedom. That is the way of humans." The princess regarded him silently for a long moment. Then she nodded, a gesture of respect and understanding. "Today, the war has ended," she said. "Not because we were defeated by force, but because we have learned what it means to face humans. Your spirit, your will, and your intelligence cannot be broken. The galaxy must recognize that you are a force to be reckoned with." The soldiers of both sides looked around, realizing that the battle had been decided not by the loudest weapons or the largest fleets, but by the quiet strength of humans. The battlefield, once a place of tension and fear, now became a symbol of resilience, strategy, and courage. As the sun set over Kairos Prime, painting the plains with deep purples and golds, the alien princess turned to leave, her gaze lingering on the human lines. She understood something she had not anticipated. Humans were not to be conquered, not to be intimidated, and not to be underestimated. They were a species defined by their endurance, their intelligence, and their unbreakable will. Eric watched her depart, feeling the weight of the day settle into a sense of quiet triumph. "This is only the beginning," he said to Mara. "The galaxy now knows what humans can do, but our work has just begun. Humanity will continue to endure, adapt, and rise, no matter what challenges come next." Mara nodded, a smile spreading across her face. "And the universe will never forget today. They have seen the true strength of humans. They have seen why we never bow, never break, and never surrender." The battlefield fell silent as night descended once more. Stars sparkled above, distant and cold, yet for humanity, they were a reminder of the vast possibilities ahead. The war had begun the moment the alien princess stepped onto the field, but it had ended with the revelation of human strength, patience, and courage. Humanity had not just survived Kairos Prime. Humanity had shown the galaxy what it truly meant to endure, to adapt, and to fight in a way no one expected. And as the alien princess left the battlefield, she carried with her the knowledge that humans were not merely a species. They were a force that could not be broken, controlled, or defeated. The war had begun, and it had ended in the same moment, when humans proved that their greatest weapon was not firepower, but their unyielding spirit. The alien princess walked onto the battlefield, and the war finally began.